Hi guys, today we're going to be doing some observation drawing. In an observation drawing, you are looking closely and studying whatever you are drawing and drawing what you see. Today we are going to be observing and drawing pumpkins. Normally we draw pumpkins that look like this. Instead of just drawing round, circle, or oval shaped pumpkins, we're going to look closely at the shapes that the pumpkins actually are. When you get started with your observation drawing, you will have two options. You can either observe from the pumpkins in front of you, or if you would like to use your iPad and take a picture with your camera and observe the picture that you took, you could do that too. So I would just take a picture with my camera. When you're taking that picture, you don't want it to be from below or way above. You want it to be a good angle where you can see the pumpkins and you're nice and close. So if you wanted to observe the picture you took, so that way you can kind of sit wherever you want, you would just set that up on your table and look at that, or you could look at the pumpkins live. So I'm going to look at the pumpkins in front of me. You choose what you would like to do. Before I even start drawing, what I'm going to do is just study them, just observe them and look at them. I'm going to sit quietly and notice what shapes I see, which one is bigger, which one is smaller. I might even kind of use my finger and squint my eyes to trace the lines that I see in the pumpkin. So pumpkins have little lines like this. They have texture in them. Every bump is different, and I'm going to study them. I'm not going to pick them up though, because we don't want to move where they are in our setup, because other people are looking at them too. But I'm just going to look closely at them. Try not to bump your table, but you're just looking at the pumpkins and what they look like. After you have studied what you are observing, you have two strategies that you can try. The first is in Sketches Schools, where you can either use the picture that you have already taken or take a picture in Sketches Schools. Make sure you're not taking it from above or below or far away, but nice and close to what you're going to draw. To take a picture, click the three dots at the top of Sketches Schools. Then choose Camera or Photo to take your picture and then size it onto the page. Next, you should pinch to zoom in to start tracing the lines that you see on the pumpkins. So I'm showing where the pumpkin pops out and the shapes that I see in the pumpkin and the stem. It is important to note what lines you don't see when the shapes go behind each other. Zoom in and out to trace your lines and possibly even trace what your objects are sitting on to show space. To show that it's just a line drawing and simplify what the lines that you trace, click the eye in the right hand corner to lose the picture you took and just see the lines that you drew. This line drawing that you can create in Sketches Schools is a great thing to use and look at to make a final drawing on a piece of paper. What great practice! This is your first strategy for practicing drawing this observation drawing. The second strategy is just drawing in your sketchbook. You can choose one or the other. You do not have to do both strategies. If you prefer not to use your iPad in Sketches Schools, that is okay. If you just want to look at what's in front of you and draw on your sketchbook, you can go ahead and do that like what I'm doing right now. Just making sure to notice the distance between your objects, the textures, and the lines that you see, not what you think you see. Whether you practice on your sketchbook like this or in Sketches Schools, your next step is to then take a bigger piece of paper and make a drawing. Now that I have sketched out my pumpkins on Sketches Schools or in my sketchbook, I'm going to use what I practiced here and look at this simple line drawing that I did to put on a bigger piece of paper. And I'm just going to use the things that I have in my art box. So I have a pencil. I'm going to show you with a Sharpie just so you can see, but I would start with a pencil and then maybe you'll go over your lines in Sharpie. So again, I'm looking at the drawing that I practiced either on my sketchbook or Sketch of Schools. I'm also going to still be looking at the pumpkins in front of me, but now I'm looking at the lines that I practiced and drawing them even bigger to fill a final piece of paper. Here I'm using a marker, but you're welcome to sketch with a pencil still. When you're doing this, never ever erase. If you make a mistake, just redraw your line, but don't erase it. Don't waste your time erasing when you can do that at the very end. So no erasing until the very end, especially doing observation drawings. So here I'm just looking at my Sketch of Schools drawing, and again you could also look at your sketchbook drawing and redrawing the lines to fill this paper bigger, and then after that I'll be adding some color. So I'm just noticing where the shapes touched each other and how big they were and how they overlapped and what direction the lines and textures went in. I'm also including the table lines to show that these pumpkins were sitting on top of something. Here I'm adding some more texture to my gourd because I think that's one of the funnest things I observed when I was looking at the gourds was the texture on it. Once you have observed your pumpkins and drawn them nice and big on your piece of paper, it's time to add color. Make sure that you are observing the colors that your pumpkins actually are. If you don't have the exact same color as your pumpkins, you can mix colors to make it. I'm going to show you a few ways you can use the tools that you brought with you in your art box to add color to your pumpkins. One tool that you can try after you've drawn your outlines is your washable markers. Now, we don't have that many colors in our washable marker box, but there is one trick that we can use to make our markers actually act like paint. So you can see that I'm only using a little bit of my orange on my pumpkin, and I'm also going to mix in yellow because I observed that a lot of my pumpkins were a lighter orange and even like a whitish yellow. So I'm not even filling the entire pumpkin with color. I'm just using a little bit of orange, a little bit more of yellow, and then I might even put some brown in. And again, not filling the whole thing. Because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a paintbrush and some water and use these washable markers like paint. Now, I used a black washable marker to outline, and that might be a little bit of a problem. If you want to use a Sharpie, when you add the water, then the black won't mix. I was okay with the black washable marker mixing because then it kind of added a little bit of a shadow on my pumpkins too. So now I have my water and my paintbrush. I'm going to dip into the water, but only use a little bit, so I slide it up the side, and then I keep my paintbrush on its tippy toes to help me to spread the color from the markers onto the pumpkins, so that parts of my pumpkin are going to be a lighter orange and some will be a little bit darker when those colors are mixing. So you can see that the black is starting to mix with the yellow and the orange. That will make it a little bit brown. If you want to practice using markers, you're welcome to try out mixing a couple of different colors in your sketchbook before doing it on your paper if you're not sure what's going to happen. Next, let's look at how we can use crayons to add color. When using crayons, a lot of times we think that crayons are just the color that they are. But if we overlap crayons and use different pressures when we're pushing down on them, we can make a lot of different colors. So I'm starting with just a layer of lightly colored orange, so I'm not pushing very hard because my pumpkin isn't that dark. Then I'm using heavy pressure with my yellow to overlap and make my pumpkin a lighter orange. There's white, yellow in some of the pumpkins, and they can end up being pretty light. Now there's also shadows that you might notice on the pumpkins, and brown and different shades of brown and tan, and even some green can help you in making your shadows. So really, again, study the colors of the pumpkins in your pictures to see where you might need some darker brown mixed in with your orange colors. Finally, let's try out colored pencils. Colored pencils are going to be very similar to crayons, as you can layer your colors and use different pressures to do so. Right now you can see I'm using a heavier pressure with my brown to make a darker layer first before I start to use my orange and my yellow layers. Really pay close attention to how I'm holding my colored pencil. I'm using the side of it to kind of fill and cover more space. The bottom of my gourd is darker, so I use more pressure there. And now I'm also using the point of my colored pencil to fill in smaller spaces with heavy pressure. So I made some of the texture on the gourd a little bit darker with the point of my colored pencil. And then I'm doing another layer with a little bit heavier pressure with my yellow colored pencil. So test out whatever supply you would like to use to finish filling your observation drawing with color, and layer the colors and use these techniques to make them look realistic, like the pumpkins and gourds that you saw. A final touch of color that you might want to add could be some shadows. Here I'm doing shadows with a marker, so I'm just making it a little bit darker underneath the pumpkins to show that the light is not reaching there. You wouldn't necessarily have to do this with a marker and water, but you could do this with any of your tools to make your shadows. Maybe add some color to what they're sitting on, the box that they're sitting on. You do not have to do the same pattern that our boxes have. You could just do one simple color or even just a shadow like you're seeing here. So I'm showing where the box is, and then you can also show a background. I'm just doing some simple stripes in the background. You could do a color or a pattern as well. Just keep it simple because we want to focus on how you did your observation drawing of the pumpkins. But you can add a little something in the background and on the box to finish your drawing. So remember, whatever tools you use, you can mix colors, you can use different pressures to make colors lighter and darker. And always just remember to take your time and use good craftsmanship and maybe even outline at the end. I cannot wait to see how you add color to your pumpkins and your backgrounds. Good luck! So remember, in an observation drawing, you're not drawing what you think something should look like. You're drawing what you actually see. Alright artists, we're going to go from drawing pumpkins like this to actually observing our pumpkins and the shapes that they are and doing our best to draw what we see. Good luck with your observation drawings!